this debate, this discussion, what are the possible threats to Poland, what are the demands or the accusations formulated against Poland, whether these are just or not. Perhaps yes, and perhaps they have no ground whatsoever in the European law. These questions are the basis of today's topic, and these are the questions that we are trying to respond today. So just in brief, I'd like to highlight that looking for the sources of today's situations, we should look into the document, namely the strategy for the equality of LGBT people 2020-2025. This document by the European Union is clearly against the basic division of competences between the European Union and the member states as far as family law is concerned. It raises numerous doubts for other reasons as well. For example, because of using the term gender and gender identity, which words are not used in any other international treaty except for the Istanbul Convention. And this is the source of the activities we should look for, because this is the document taken as the basis by the European Commission in their correspondence with the Polish government. There will be a speech devoted to this topic read by Mr. Dr. Furman in the name of Karolina Pawłowska, director of the Ordo Iuris family law division, who could not be here with us. Then Ms. Joanna Mudrzewska will present the EU aspect of all this problem, the correspondence between the European Union and Poland, and then attorney Nikodem Bernaciak will address the merit of these accusations, showing that all the documents, all the appeals directed to Poland by the European Union, which can hardly be considered acceptable from the Polish jurisdiction perspective, because they are absolutely non-binding. So, without further ado, I'd like to pass the microphone to Mr. Filip Furman to present the strategy, the EU LGBT equality strategy. Thank you very much. As we have already mentioned, I'd like to begin with stating the fact that the Ordo Iuris Institute for a long time has been addressing all sort of manipulations on which the latest actions taken by the European Commission against Poland are based. They are worrisome, without any doubt. That's why fighting against the stereotype manipulated against Poland concerning the life of the so-called LGBTIQ persons in Poland, we have presented the first English language report, which we would like to present to you after today's conference. The report against discrimination against ideology is the first such comprehensive and ideologically unvarnished study of both the factual and legal situation of people with homosexual tendencies in Poland and Europe. In the report, we present that the approach to equality measures presented by the European Commission not only contradicts EU treaties themselves, national laws of numerous member states, the jurisprudence of national and international courts, but also, perhaps what is the most important, it fails to bring any of the expected results. It is our goal, our aim to not only analyze it from the legal perspective. That's why we have not limited ourselves to a legal analysis, which in itself demonstrates the illegality of the actions taken by the European Commission. Above all, we focused on people, their real situation and the problems they face in their everyday lives. To do this, we looked at research by the European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights, which was the first to present such a broad account of the personal feelings of people identified as LGBTIQ about different spheres of life across Europe. As it turned out, the belief that in countries such as Poland or Hungary people are worse off, it is just a myth in many ways. I'll tell you a bit more about this in detail in the end of our conference. What does this mean in practice? It means that the way of fighting discrimination chosen by the European Commission, contrary to the current law, is wrong, and on many levels. First of all, it ignores the treaties from which it follows. It is not uncertain that the matter relating to substantive family law should remain the exclusive competence of EU member states. It ignores the diversity of states, their cultures, which approach these issues differently and have every right to do so. Finally, it ignores the fact that even the latest research by the Fundamental Rights Agency on the situation of LGBTIQ people in Europe calls into question the validity of the EC-dominant approach to equality measures. The European Commission's actions are thus not grounded neither in the existing law nor the facts. They fail to refer at all to the real situation of LGBTIQ people in countries like Poland. They reproduce fake news and ignore inconvenient data. We hope that this publication will contribute to a sound discussion based on factual arguments about how to actually work for equality and not just use it for the benefit of political ideology. So please, let's continue. Thank you very much, and I'd like to turn Joanna Modrzewska to speak. I'd like to begin that in the official communication by the European Commission, Poland received the so-called yellow card. The European Commission started proceeding against Poland and Hungary related with the so-called fundamental rights. In the communication, it has been stated that since 2019, a number of Polish local communities and regions have adopted a resolution concerning the so-called LGBT free zones. The Commission has declared their doubt whether it is not against the EU law concerning non-discrimination regarding sexual orientation. It has been also added that a thorough analysis of these resolutions with regard to their accordance with their binding law should be performed. We need, the Commission states that needs adequate and detailed information from the Polish government. There has also been a mention that even though the Commission called the Polish government for these piece of information in February, the Polish government failed to react. These accusations have been addressed by Anna Schmidt, a representative of the Polish government, saying that the Polish government did respond, in fact, to that letter. What is more, the Polish government remains in permanent contact in this context with the EC. However, to answer these questions whether Poland failed as a member state in this regard, it is important that we analyze the matter of the correspondence, its very content, as well as the actions taken previously by the European Commission and the European Parliament. In the first slide, we can see the first resolution, the European Parliament decision concerning Poland, which considers that Poland violated the rule of law principle. What relates the rule of law in Poland is of limited scope. It regards only the rule of law in a very strict sense of this term. Whereas there is a need to broaden this scope. What is very important is violating such rules as democracy and human rights, important values for the European Union. The Union and the Commission have been called for not using the narrow interpretation of these values and the procedure from Article 7, analyzing the consequences of the Polish government in the context of democracy and basic rights. Another letter, 16th of February 2021, the European Commission sent a letter to the Polish government, which is a reaction to a number of calls from NGOs and individuals complaining that in 2019 over 90 Polish local governments of different scale and regions adopted resolutions against the so-called LGBT ideology. The authors believe that such resolutions are in violation of the EU law. In the content of this letter, the Commission presents themselves as the guardian of the treaties, indicating that the Commission services are analyzing whether these resolutions are compatible with the EU legislation concerning non-discrimination, also with regard to European structural funds and investment funds. The Commission indicated that the jurisdiction by the Tribunal means that the Member States are obliged to help the Commission to perform its duties, in particular ensuring that the treaties and the measures adopted by the institutions are implemented. There have been 12 detailed questions. Poland received 2 months to provide answers to these questions. I'm not going to address these questions. We're going to discuss it in the further part of the conference. The letter from 19th April 2021, the Office of the Government Representative for the Equal Treatment answered the previously mentioned letter by the Commission. However, on the 15th of July, the European Commission still officially blamed Poland for non-collaboration with the EC as concerns the aforementioned resolutions. According to the Commission, the letter from the government representative for equality, Poland failed to answer at all 9 out of 12 questions asked by the Commission, whereas the remaining 3 have been answered only in part. We have to stress that the lack of answer or insufficient answers are considered by the Commission a violation, a breach of Article 4 of the Treaty on the European Union. What is particularly important in this matter is the resolution by the European Parliament from the 14th of September 2021. The European Parliament adopted a resolution on LGBTIQ people in the European Union. We should indicate here that the resolution is not a source of law. It's just a form of an appeal, a hint on what actions should be taken. In the motive C of this resolution, it has been repeated, something which is absolutely ungrounded, that Poland supposedly violates the rules of non-discrimination, equality and freedom of speech. Also, where the local family rights charters were accepted, as well as resolutions of the LGBT free zones. In point 14, the European Parliament appealed for the Commission to act as concerns the LGBTIQ communities in Poland and Hungary, and the Council has been called by the Parliament to come back to the discussion concerning using Article 7 of the Treaty of the European Union against Poland and Hungary, also with regard to the LGBTIQ people. We should stress here, once again, that the expressions used in the resolution by the European Parliament from the 14th of September, as well as previously mentioned language, have to be treated as some sort of urging the Commission to take a particular course of action, a negative adversary towards Poland, which is at the same time against, in violation of the basic EU treaties. The European Commission will be looking for a possibility to punish Poland, even though there is no legal ground for that whatsoever. I would also like to refer to Article 7 of the Treaty on the European Union, which has been discussed exceedingly in the media in the recent time. As regards the European Commission doubts they presented, I'd like to indicate that in the context of the current procedure, namely regarding LGBT persons, Article 7 has not been applied. Still, I think it is worth explaining and to define this Article 7 and to state when it might be necessary to apply it, and also to present by these means that it is absolutely groundless to use Article 7 against Poland in today's context. As we said, 1/3 of the countries, the Council can decide with the 4/5 of their members can state the existence of a clear risk of serious breach of the values by the member state, of the values mentioned in Article 2. The mechanism presented in this provision is some sort of a preventive function. It is not a sanction. In order to initiate the procedure, it is necessary to state the existence of a clear risk of a serious breach of values. This language is very unclear. Both this clear risk as well as serious breach are purely subjective expressions. The doctrine of law accepts that a serious breach is the one that has a serious importance or the high intensity, and is clearly a breach on a serious scale. It is also necessary to mention that this great weight is also unclear, imprecise. Section 2 of the aforementioned provision states that the European Council, acting unanimously on the initiative of 1/3 of the member states or the European Commission, and with the acceptance of the European Parliament, may state, after calling the member state to present their views, a serious and permanent breach by this member state of the values mentioned in Article 2. We still, at this point, we have to refer to Article 354 of the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union, which refers to Article 7 of the Treaty of the European Union concerning that certain rights might be limited. It has to be stated that a representative of the EU country, this country is not accepted, not included, counting the 1/3 of the 4/5 of the member states in the aforementioned article. Currently, the European Union has no possibility of using this mechanism against two member states in one procedure, which would exclude both of these countries from the possibility to vote. In the section 3 of the aforementioned article, it is stated that the Council may, with a qualified majority, decide on suspending certain rights resulting from the implementation of the treaties for the member state. However, it is impossible to exclude a country from the European Union on the basis of Article 7, because then all the rights resulting from treaties would be suspended. Also, the sanctions have to be in accordance with the rule of proportionality accepted by the European Union. I'd like now to call Mecenas Nikodem Bernaczek, speaking about the local context of the matter, and to address the local charters of family rights. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have listened about the EU mechanism accusing Poland of breaching these laws.
Szanowni Państwo, dziękuję za udzielenie mi głosu. Poznaliśmy już mechanizm, na podstawie którego mogą być.
So we have learned about the mechanism of actions they can possibly against Poland in the future, and that's why I would like to analyze why exactly are we stigmatized by the European Commission. So far the media have discussed only certain letters, accusations, but after this conference we shall present the entire correspondence between the Polish government and the European Commission, so that you can see for yourselves what is the real accusation by the European Commission. In the letter from the 16th of February, the European Commission addressed 12 questions to the Polish government, and the answer to 8 out of these questions is not within our zone of competence, because we would need data which is only available for the public organs. But we might help to answer 4 of these questions. This is what we have done in our analysis, which will be included after the conference and available on our website. Right now I would like to address 4 of these questions. The first of these questions refer to the legal status of resolutions for LGBT-free zones in the Polish law. It is worth mentioning the first sentence, that supposedly over 90 Polish local governments have adopted such resolutions. This already includes false information. We don't know why did the Commission use false information, because these resolutions were adopted in about 50, whereas the remaining 39 local communities have adopted local family rights charter were adopted, provided by with the expertise of the Ordo Iuris. These are not the same documents. If we read the correspondence by the European Union, all these accusations are referred to the LGBT. This is not mentioned by the local charter for family rights. This problem is just not used. it does not refer to LGBT in any way. It is not. It's a positive document, pro-family, which includes no provisions whatsoever, and has never been addressed by any court or something, or any institutions like that. What is most important is that such resolutions are non-binding declarations only. These acts can be any local government is entitled to adopt. It's a sort of a declaration, appeal, resolution with no binding effects, and every local government has the right to formulate such statements by the Supreme Administrative Court in 2017. None of these declarations. There is the zone word used. This has been coined by the media, probably trying to present certain vision. Nothing like that. That's why we can say that there are no LGBT-free zones in Poland. However, this is the expression used in 4 resolutions by the European Union. All of them in 2019, 20 and 21, also 2 days ago. Using these information is just spreading fake news and nothing more. That's why the answer to all these, to the first question, is that these documents are non-binding at all and have not been formulated in any way that forces anyone, any new obligations, limitations by anyone. It's just a moral, sort of a moral appeal. The second question concerns the jurisdiction of the Polish courts concerning these resolutions. And yes, the facts are that the local administrative courts have been 14 times have discussed these kind of laws. However, in 10 of the cases, these contests have been rebuked. No liquidation contestations have been formulated. These are now discussed by the Supreme Administration Court in Poland. What is more, the courts stated in each case present not that they present ideology that is not interfering in the local sphere. The court in Rzeszów said that this court does not discriminate any LGBT persons or limiting their rights whatsoever. So I'd like to present the entire list of these speeches. These are the dates and all the documents here. All of them are presented in public, and if you read them in detail, this is clear. The third question is that what does the very term freedom from LGBT mean? What is the all LGBT ideology mean? We do not use this language at all. But so let's see what these people mean by that. What was their intention? That's why I'd also like to present the data we have analyzed in our research in this matter. These resolutions, which I mean do not include the local family rights charter. There are 3 different actions. The so-called LGBT propaganda in school, or LGBT spokespeople in the schools, using schools against early sexual education. You might remember the WHO, World Health Organization, for example, teaching masturbation from the early stage and preschool. This is not related to the fact of these persons' or sexual orientation or whatsoever. And the third is the administrative pressure for political correctness. in some of these texts it was considered named homo propaganda, but not all of them. And there are three positive actions presented by the local councillors. The constitutional right to raise children in according to their parents' views. Secondly, protection of the students, so that the parents and teachers can present the beauty of human love to them, no discrimination here. And the third, protecting teachers and entrepreneurs against not professional criteria in employing workers, etc. Most of these resolutions also mean that the local government will not interfere in the private life of Polish families. That's why these resolutions do not have any impact whatsoever on the private lives. They are only limited to public sphere, especially education. In some of these resolutions, for example in Tuchowo in 2020, that they understand LGBT ideology as a set of controversial ideas on family, marriage, human sexuality, early sexualization of children, as well as trying to impose them in culture and social life. Again, no mention of sexual orientation is mentioned whatsoever. This regards certain actions against the Polish law in the public sphere. And finally, I'd like to say that these declarations have been formulated with regard to a particular declaration by the LGBT plus declaration by President of Warsaw, Rafał Trzaskowski. It was just a kind of response to that document from Warsaw. That's why we could mention Slavoj Žižek, a Marxist philosopher who believes that today LGBT plus acronym, where he could say that one of his letters, A, was allies, namely all of anybody can identify with this movement. So people, this is a kind of an umbrella term. Another case in the public by Jacek Wartyzel in the public debate, who defined these terms in other ways. And again, from the left, by Jan Hartmann, in which he elaborates on these political postulates by LGBT, approving to manifest some sexual identity in the public sphere, elements of the LGBT propaganda in the schools, etc. We have all included in our analysis, and it proves that LGBT ideology is not understood by most of the Polish public opinion as somebody's personal sexual orientation, which is the most important question, I think. We have included all of this in our analysis, and the fourth question regards unprofessional behaviors motivated by these. There are many examples. We have had class lessons, the school, human rights friendly school, which included LGBT propaganda by people from Lambda, from Homo Faber, Torad, etc. And according to its coordinator from the Warsaw City Council, it included all that the LGBT persons need. Another example is the famous case of a printer from Łódź who just refused to collaborate with the rules. He was taken to court for refusing to collaborate with the LGBT movement. This case is closed. However, these declarations have spread numerous times before the courts became engaged in it. Thank you very much for reading this analytical part. It is available on our website. Thank you very much.
bardzo obszerne i dokładne wyjaśnienie
It's very clear, very detailed way that to prove that these accusations are groundless. I'd like to highlight that in the background of this discussion, we see the question of the factual situation of the homosexual people in Poland, which is supposedly different from the EU standards as regards the quality of life enjoyed by other Polish people. This accusation is absolutely wrong, and that's why we have devoted some separate publications to this by Ordo Iuris Institute. For example, the situation of homosexual persons and people with distortions of sexual identity in Poland, where we analyze this problem in detail, as well as a separate publication concerning the EU strategy on LGBT persons, where a number of research, also by the European Agency of Basic Rights, proving that it is false that people with such that such people are discriminated in Poland in whatsoever way. The last speech today by Mr. Filip Furman will discuss these. Thank you very much. As already mentioned by my fourth speaker, have been performed by the agency of Fundamental Rights Agency, a specialized EU agenda, and these data was used as the basis for a report by the agency a long way for LGBTI equality. However, the database was absolutely huge, and you can find lots of important, crucial pieces of information or research that prove that the situation of people identifying with LGBTI is much better in many ways than the average situation in the EU, not to mention the countries which are so-called leading states in this narrative, like Germany or France. Why do I say people identifying with LGBTI? Because as we see clearly, we cannot say that this is the same group as gays, lesbians, etc. People with particular sexual tendencies, which I'm going to address later. Just to state the clear data. The first question I wanted to show is the general openness as regards to identify as LGBTI, a percentage of respondents from each member state. We can see Poland, to the left, is very low in this area. People are not very open as far as identifying, because supposedly they're afraid of some negative reaction by the society. But if we see what kind of reactions it provokes, I think it is particularly important. People who have experienced ridicule, persecution or threats because they identify as LGBTI. Children can be sometimes even more cruel than their parents. But we see that Poland, this percentage is significantly lower, below 30%, than the EU average. Almost by 10% lower than the average for, say, Germany, Great Britain, which was also included in the research, Spain, namely the countries which are supposedly very progressive. The experience by LGBTI are much worse than in Poland. Further, perceived discrimination in the labor place of work. Respondents feeling they felt discriminated against. Poland is here above the average. We don't know if it's a true discrimination or it's just a sentiment. For example, the unemployment from LGBTI is much lower than the rest of the European Union. Not to compare with Italy, Spain. It's much higher in other countries. Further on, perceived discrimination in healthcare and social care. The percentage of respondents who answered they felt discriminated against by the medical services or social services because of being LGBTI. Much lower than in the EU. But speaking about factual things, limitations, practical limitations against below. And much lower than, for example, Britain, Ireland or Sweden. Experience of particular difficulties with access to health service because of necessity to change their doctor or specialist because they're a negative reaction. Poland against below the EU average, 4%, whereas in France 9%. What else can we say? 140,000 people participated, 14,000 from Poland, 10%, one of the highest percentages in Poland. Average age 29, 82% before 40 years of age, and only 4% over 55. Almost a half with higher education, also almost a half living in big cities. What does that mean? That lesbians, gays, etc. are only 4% over 55 years of age or something like that, and 82% are below 40? No, I believe that this it just refers to a small part of the entire homosexual population, and then similar. So they are not representative for these people. What is more, fighting against discrimination and for the rights of these people cannot be identified with the fight against discrimination of homosexuals. So what is the basis, what is the ground for this fight? In my opinion, it is a sort of a failure to learn from history by many of the members of the Western countries overrepresented in the EU institutions. Because yes, in those countries, contrarily to Poland, people from these countries have been discriminated against by a system, put in prison, forced to participate in some kind of false therapies, and now trying to kind of absolve themselves for these practices from the past. The members of these countries still haven't departed from this paradigm lying beneath those practices, and they are still using it, trying to simply blame new countries for it. And this paradigm accepts as acceptable to impose one's views, one's values or anti-values to other individuals, communities or nations. I do believe it's a very harmful paradigm. It also makes future integration difficult or impossible. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for participating in today's conference. If I can sum up, I believe that if we analyze the facts thoroughly, if we analyze the treaties and their provision thoroughly, if we compare the sources, we can demystify the false thesis widespread in the media, which mislead the public opinion in many cases. This is what we are trying to do. I'd like to invite you to visit our website, to read the reports from today's conference as well, and the entire report in which the data we have mentioned will be available. If you are interested, if you have any questions, we're at your disposal, so feel free to ask. If not, thank you very much for today's conference.